Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had a villain's resolve part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story TurtleWearingClothes from 𝗧𝗵𝗲. So let's start the video. A little boy sat at his computer desk, crying his eyes out while clutching his all-might doll. He turned around when he heard his door open, finding his distraught mother standing in the doorway. He's such a cool hero. Can I be a hero too? Izuku Midoriya ran several replies through her head. Yes, of course you can. Or I'm sorry, Izuku. But only one made its way through her lips as she hugged her son. Who cares what you can or can't be? You can make your own path. You do what you think you should to make things better. Izuku Midoriya looked at his mother in confusion. But what can I do to better society without being a hero? Izuku took a deep breath. Well, there are doctors, police, firefighters, and vigilantes, to some extent. The boy nodded along and wiped away his tears. I could be a good vigilante, right? Well, I don't recommend it, but I'm going to be honest, Izuku. Hero schools won't let you in if you're quirkless. So being a vigilante is as close as you can get to being a pro-hero. But, again, there is always being a police officer. Most people who want to be heroes but can't become police. Izuku didn't understand why she even suggested being a vigilante. But she was angry. Her little boy, who only ever wanted to be a hero and help people, had drawn the short stick. He was going to be treated differently than everyone else just because he didn't have a quirk. Izuku shook his head. Some pro-heroes were vigilantes before they became heroes. So if I can prove myself that way, then they'll have to make me a hero. Izuku smiled. Well, if that's what you want to do, then I'll support you. I'll support you no matter what you do. And she meant that because she knew 𝗵𝗲𝗄 well that no one else would. Izuku ended up being serious about being a vigilante, and Izuku was serious about supporting him. Izuku had started training, figuring that he would have to be strong to fight against people with quirks. Izuku had started making him special food, and even trained with him occasionally. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 had pretty much stopped bullying him when Izuku announced that he had given up on being a hero. They hung out more, and Izuku even managed to curve 𝗵𝗃𝗲 toward being at least a little nicer. They became real friends again. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 even decided that Izuku could work at his future agency in a position other than sidekick. Maybe as a secretary. About halfway into his first year of middle school, though, Izuku found his first real ally other than his mother. It happened when Izuku was on one of his runs. Izuku had opted to join him this time, which meant that they went on a route through the richer part of the city. Izuku loved to look at the more expensive clothes people wore and see if she could remake them at home. They were about halfway through their run when Izuku stopped. Izuku, did you hear that? Izuku paused and walked back over to where his mom had stopped. Hear what? Izuku held up her hand. Slowly, the sound of crying made itself known. The mother and son shared a look before going to investigate. Their hunt revealed a boy curled in a ball in an alley, shaking from the force of his sobs. Hey, are you okay? Deku squatted down and gently put a hand on the boy. The boy, whose hair was a pretty shade of both red and white, jumped and stared at the two with wide eyes. He looked terrified, though that was understandable considering all the bruises and cuts covering his body. Hey, it's okay. We're not going to hurt you. We heard you crying and were worried. Izuku squatted down on the other side of the boy, subtly trapping him in. They didn't want him to leave before they figured out the problem. Why do you care? Just leave me alone. He wiped his tears quickly and looked back at the ground. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and this is my mom, Izuku Midoriya. What's your name? Izuku tried. Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki. As in Enji Todoroki. Endeavor. Izuku asked. Todoroki nodded. Yeah. Anything else you need? Well, we wanted to know why you were crying, and how we could help, Izuku said as she sat down next to Todoroki. It doesn't matter. Just forget you saw me here. Izuku sighed and sat down as well. Sorry, but we're kinda too nosy to leave you alone like this. Most heroes wouldn't give a crying person any attention, so we have to instead. Todoroki glanced at the mother and son, before keeping his eyes on Izuku. You don't sound too fond of heroes? Izuku shrugged. Most of them 𝗧𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗃. Todoroki smiled slightly. Especially 𝗕𝗏𝗏. Is he the reason you're crying here covered in bruises? Inko asked in her best motherly voice. Todoroki scowled. Yeah, but that's nothing new. All he cares about is shaping me into the ultimate hero who can surpass all might. He didn't know why, but it was so easy to talk about his problems with these two. It was like their quirks were making people spill their feelings. Sounds like one of the sucky heroes. How about you come with us back to our house? Izuku stood and offered his hand. We have plenty to eat and some first aid kits so that we can patch you up, Inko chimed in. Todoroki hesitated before grabbing Izuku's hand. It's not like he wanted to go home, nor did he want to stay in the stinky alley. So why not go with two strangers back to their house? What could go wrong? It didn't take long before Todoroki became a common visitor to the Midoriya residence, and it took even less time for him to join in on Izuku's plan. After all, it would be beneficial to the world if the bad heroes and villains were taken care of in a way that the law wouldn't allow. It was during another one of Todoroki's visits that they had started to actually plan. They were currently in Izuku's room, with a giant whiteboard on the wall filled with ideas. So, if you get into UA, you could be an inside man. You could try and recruit people who feel like the system. In the meantime, I'll be going to a high school for business. To get money for our organization, we'll give it a business front, like a bakery or something, while on the interior it's actually our base. Try and recruit some people from the support department. That would really help us. Todoroki nodded along while munching on a cookie. With your mom's baked goods, the bakery thing could work. As much as I want to just shout out, hey, 𝗕𝗏𝗏's child is becoming a villain, your plan makes sense. Izuku snorted. Yeah. Maybe later on you can do that. My mom has a lot of money saved up, so she can get a building. Look to see if you can find any good ones, preferably a little more isolated and with a basement. Alright. I can also get us some money too. As soon as I get into UA in 2 years, I'll try and recruit a support student. After that, what kind of students do you want? Izuku bit his lip as he thought. Anyone who has similar ideals as us. I don't care how strong or weak their quirk is. Anyone who feels that heroes need to be better. Todoroki nodded. I'll do my best. Shoto. Izuku. Dinner is ready. Todoroki and Izuku shared a look before dashing to the kitchen. Inko's cooking was always to die for. Izuku was on another jog when the sound of explosions and shouting captured his attention. He pulled out his notebook from his bag that he had on him just in case he could take some notes and approached the scene, not that concerned. When Izuku got to the front of the crowd, however, what he saw made his blood run cold. Bakugo was trapped by a slime villain, obviously in distress. Pro heroes were on the sidelines, doing nothing to help. It was obvious to anyone that Bakugo wouldn't last much longer. Izuku knew he couldn't just stand back and watch his friend die. He also knew the pros weren't going to do anything. This only fueled his ideals. He wished he had the costume his mother had been making, but it was only a fleeting thought. Taking a deep breath, centering himself, Izuku charged into the fray. The yelling behind Izuku didn't even faze him. If they didn't want friends and family to try and save victims, then they shouldn't just stand around. All that mattered was the villain in front of him. One of the only benefits of being quirkless was the fact that he was legally allowed to carry around a weapon for self-defense, as long as it was registered. It was considered necessary since most people with quirks could defend themselves in some way, or something like that. Izuku had particularly asked for a staff that could compact, for easier carrying. Grabbing that staff, Izuku extended it while also throwing his bag at the villain to stun him, for at least a moment. Kaken, grab on. Izuku yelled as he jammed the staff into the villain and to where he thought Bakugo's hands would be. Shitty nerd. Why are you here? You don't even have a quirk. Though Bakugo was yelling at Izuku for how stupid he was to enter a fight when he was quirkless, he still grabbed the offered staff. With all his strength, Izuku pulled Bakugo mostly out of the slime villain before he recovered. It wasn't enough though. 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗏. The slime villain swung a slimy tentacle and Izuku braced for impact, but it never came. It's fine now. But because I am here. Everyone was in awe. The top hero, All Might, had suddenly appeared and stopped the tentacle from hitting Izuku. Hold on tight. Izuku was grabbed by All Might and grabbed 𝗵𝗃𝗲's arm in turn. Then, with one punch, the number one hero blew away the villain. The blow was so powerful it even made it start to rain. Kaken. Izuku didn't care if he was currently next to the number one hero. He didn't care that there were a lot of people rushing over to them. All he cared about was how his friend was doing. I'm fine, Deku. I would have been even if you didn't jump in. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was glaring at Izuku, but Izuku could tell there wasn't a lot of fire in it. He could also tell that 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was subtly looking him over to make sure Izuku was alright. Izuku smiled. I know. I'm glad you're fine. The boys weren't able to say another word to each other as they were split up by the pro heroes. While 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was being praised, Izuku was being lectured by 𝗕𝗏𝗵𝗃𝗀 and 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗏. You know, I really don't care what you're saying. That stopped the heroes, seemingly throwing them off guard. Izuku continued though. You two were just standing around while my friend was being murdered by a villain. 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀, you could have had Backdraft cover you in water to keep the fire from burning you while you grabbed onto Kaken and pulled him out. And you, 𝗕𝗏𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗏, could have tried to sneak up on the villain to surprise him with a punch while 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗏 did that. 𝗵𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗏 could have shrunk down and grown again when she was in the right area. I'm not going to let my friend die just because you guys don't know how to do your job. Izuku didn't even give the stunned heroes time to respond as he grabbed his stuff and walked off. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏 was fine, and his mother was probably starting to get worried. He was stopped a few blocks later by 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏 himself though. Oi, Deku. Izuku turned and smiled at 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏. Hey, Kaken. You're lucky. You got a bunch of praise for being brave while I just got lectured at for doing something while the pros were just standing around. You shouldn't have run in there when all you have is a staff. What if you got hurt? Izuku sighed. I didn't care if I got hurt. I just wanted to make sure I could at least give you a chance to escape. If you had, then you could have blown that villain away and saved me anyway. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏 growled, then smirked. Well, you're right about one thing. I could have easily saved you. I'm going to surpass All Might and be the number one hero after all. Izuku chuckled. Yeah. You are already way better than those guys. I know that if our situations were reversed, you would have easily saved me without All Might having to step in. Izuku grinned, and that smile would have been enough to sweep anyone off of their feet. 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏's face started to heat up and he sputtered. Of course I would. Don't go running into any more fight, shitty Deku. He then ran away, cursing all the way. Izuku just shook his head with a small smile and continued walking. He wasn't able to make it much farther before someone else appeared, however. Young man. All Might yelled as he slid from around the corner and in front of Izuku. That was very brave of you to run in like that. It gave me the perfect opportunity to swoop in and take care of that villain. All Might. Izuku grinned. While he had become a little more skeptical of most heroes, he couldn't stop his inner fanboy from getting excited about seeing the number one hero in the world. What is your name, young man? And I'm curious. Why didn't you use your quirk to save your friend? I'm Izuku Midoriya and he didn't use a quirk, because I don't have one. I couldn't just sit around though while the heroes stood by. Izuku looked up at the pro, curious about what he would say, but also a little nervous. Quirkless, yet you still jumped into the fray. All Might glanced around. You know, that was very heroic of you. It would be a waste for you not to become a hero. That is why I have an offer for you. An offer? That raised Izuku's curiosity. He was happy that All Might was telling him that he would have made a good hero, but that ship had sailed a long time ago. That just wasn't an option for him. Instead, he was going to become a villain that took care of the bad guys in the way the law couldn't allow. Even if some of those bad guys were supposedly heroes. A puff of smoke covered All Might, and when it dispersed, in his place stood a tall, skinny, and hollow man. Izuku panicked slightly seeing the poor state the man was in and the fact that he was standing where All Might had been standing a second ago. An imposter? Izuku asked. Oh. Let me explain. All Might began to explain his story, from his injury to his quirk. By the time he was finished, Izuku looked dumbfounded. I know that this is a lot to take in. I need a successor though, and I would like it to be you. Your body just needs a little more training, and then you would be able to accept my quirk. You would also have to keep what I had told you a secret, of course. I ask that you keep it secret no matter what your answer is. To get to the point, will you accept my quirk? Izuku was honestly stunned. He didn't know how to answer. He had given up being a hero a long time ago and accepted his quirklessness, and now he was suddenly offered a quirk from the #1 hero and being told he could be a hero. Not to mention how this threw a wrench in his ideas of how quirks worked. How could he even say no? He had become too dedicated to his plans to just throw them away, though. Maybe he could somehow take All Might's quirk, make it seem like he couldn't be a hero, and then find a true hero to pass it on to later on. If you do accept, I'll help you train for the UA exams so that you can enter my alma mater. Again, I know this is a lot to take in, but I believe that you would be a worthy successor for me. Izuku in a breath. If he could throw the test, then he could find an easy way out and maybe help All Might a better suited heir. Hell, maybe he could even suggest Bakugo. For now, though, he would play along and he would try not to seem suspicious. He would have to tell Todoroki, Bakugo, and his mother though. There is no way he could get away with this without them getting suspicious. Alright, but I have some conditions. Izuku was very happy with the building they had recently purchased. It was slightly isolated, mostly surrounded by trees with the nearest buildings being 100 feet away. It also had a basement that was quite large and had only one entrance. With some renovations, it would be perfect for them. Inko, Todoroki, and him had decided against the bakery idea, considering that would draw health inspectors who would be looking around. Instead, they decided to pose as a tailor shop. After all, Izuku and Inko were both talented when it came to sewing, and Inko even had experience when it came to being a seamstress. Right now, Izuku and his mother were working on making the basement more secure, along with creating a level further below it that was going to be bigger and have multiple rooms. Inko's quirk was very helpful during this, along with the strength that Izuku gained from working out. Inko had been working on her quirk so that she could move bigger and heavier objects, but also worked on going smaller. At this point, she could attract things on an atomic level, though it took heavy concentration. If she wanted to, she could disintegrate a person by pulling their atoms toward her. She most likely never would, but she could. Todoroki was going to join them later after he finished his training with his father after school. Izuku had already completed his training with All Might in the morning before school and an hour after school, and couldn't wait to just relax with his mother and Todoroki. All Might did offer to stop by tomorrow though, as tomorrow was Saturday, and help them with what he thought was just his mother's business she was starting. Funny enough, Bakugo did as well. Before that though, the three would have to hide the bigger basement they were making under the regular basement. Izuku, Inko. Inko and Izuku looked up from their work to see Todoroki standing at the top of the stairs. Hey Shoto. Did you have any trouble finding this place? Izuku asked, putting down a hammer that he was using. No, your directions were really good. Todoroki descended into the lowest level and looked around. It looks promising. How are we going to hide this from All Might and Bakugo though? I was thinking about covering up the entrance with a rug and just keeping them on the upper levels to help design the layout. All Might probably won't be able to keep his muscle form for too long while here anyway, so we can use that to argue that he should stay up there and help my mom decorate. Kaken can be used to move the stuff around on the second floor on and fix up the ground floor stairs, Izuku answered as he took a break to sit on the floor. It kinda surprised him that he was able to reason enough with All Might to get him to reveal his secrets to Bakugo, Todoroki, and Inko as well. The hero must have been really desperate to get Izuku to be his successor. It almost made Izuku feel bad that he was going to throw it all away for his ideals. Inko and Todoroki had even made it clear that they would support him should he choose to change his plans and become a hero. Izuku knew, however, that there were still things that needed to be done in the shadows. Things that needed to be done that a hero couldn't do. Maybe in a different timeline, he would have fully accepted All Might's offer and became a hero. But that was not this timeline. I guess that could work. And if they go near it, we could distract them somehow, Inko sighed. I can't believe that All Might is losing his power. And that he's going to give his quirk to you, Izuku. What are you going to do with it? Well, I was planning on throwing the practical exam in for UA so that I fail, and then hopefully help All Might find a better successor. I don't need a quirk to succeed. I'll prove that to everyone. Izuku had a fiery passion in his eyes as he said that. Todoroki smiled. I'm with you all the way. Me too. 𝗵𝗃 smiled proudly at her son. 𝗵𝗃, I can't believe that you're opening your own shop. I'm so proud of you. Mitsuki yelled as she pulled her childhood friend into a hug. 𝗵𝗃 smiled and hugged her back. Thank you. I figured that it was about time since I already do commissions for people and have a business degree that I never used. Izuku, 𝗵𝗃, and Todoroki were internally freaking out about Mitsuki being here. First of all, she didn't know about All Might, who would be here soon. Second, she was super nosy and would no doubt find their secret entrance. Sorry I showed up unannounced, but once Katsuki told me what he was up to today, I just had to come and check your shop out. I can't stay long, the three internally sighed in relief, but I'll be back again someday soon to help out. Hell, I can even help you run the shop if you need it. I know a thing or two about sewing thanks to Masaru. 𝗵𝗃 smiled sweetly. I might just take you up on that. Mitsuki released 𝗵𝗃. I'll get going now, but I expect constant updates on how things are going. See you. She made sure to ruffle Izuku's hair before she left. Stupid hag, tagging along without asking, Bakugo mumbled, watching his mother leave. He then turned back to the Midoriyas. This was only his second time meeting Todoroki, and he still wasn't the biggest fan of him. Oi, auntie, what do you want me to do? Well, I was hoping you could fix up the ground level stairs. They seem to be a little unstable, 𝗵𝗃 said while motioning to some plywood, nails, and a hammer nearby. Yeah, I can do that. Bakugo grabbed the supplies and went to work fixing up the stairs. Izuku moved closer to Todoroki and whispered to him, Hey, use this opportunity to slip down to the lower level. I would prefer it if some work got done on it today. Todoroki nodded and slipped off while Bakugo was distracted. Only a few minutes later and All Might appeared in all his glory. Ah, hello young Midoriya. I'm assuming this is the place. Izuku smiled. Yep. I can't wait till we get this place open for business. 𝗵𝗃 approached them with her own smile. Hello All Might. Thank you so much for coming to help. You didn't have to though. I know you must be busy, it's no problem at all. Think of it as a little thank you for keeping my secrets, All Might winked. Still, I am very grateful for the help. We were thinking that you could help me move some things around the ground floor. And then once Katsuki is done fixing up the stairs helping me organize the second floor. We wouldn't want you to use up all of your time helping us with the shop, just in case there's some hero work you have to do, 𝗵𝗃 explained. Besides, we can kinda think of this as extra training for me. I can move most of the heavy objects and build up more muscle. Izuku said in a cheery voice. That is some good thinking. Come young Midoriya. Let's build up those muscles even more. All Might laughed as he dragged Izuku into the building, causing 𝗵𝗃 to giggle as she followed. Bakugo looked up from his place on the third step, and though it was barely noticeable, his eyes seemed to light up upon spotting the number one hero. All Might grinned at him. Ah, you must be young Bakugo. I have heard a lot about you from young Midoriya. Bakugo looked at Izuku. You better not have said anything weird, Deku. Izuku snorted. Don't worry Kaken, I didn't. I only talked about how you're quirk and how you want to be a great hero who surpasses All Might. Oh, and how you're secretly as much of a fanboy as I am. Damn it, Deku. Bakugo yelled, sparks flying off his fingertips. His face was growing red, but no one could say for sure if it was from anger or embarrassment. Probably both. Katsuki, you better not set anything on fire or explode something. 𝗵𝗃 lectured. Bakugo grumbled out an apology before going back to work. All Might laughed, which made a few things shake. It's all right, my boy. Nothing wrong with having that much passion. Izuku managed to free himself from All Might's grasp and grabbed some blueprints. I'm going to help Todoroki down in the basement for a bit. Here are the blueprints for this level and upstairs though. They had made sure to make some extra blueprints that didn't show their design for the lower level. He handed them to All Might before heading downstairs. After 3 hours of working, 𝗵𝗃 had decided to have everyone take a break for some dinner. It was some cheap takeout, but with how hard everyone worked, any food would be delicious. I was wondering something, Yagi spoke up after eating some. He was in his true form, which had taken 𝗵𝗃, Todoroki, and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 a little bit to get used to. I know that you and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 go to school together, but how do you know Todoroki? He asked Izuku. Izuku, Inko, and Todoroki all shared a look. How much should they tell? Well, my mother and I were out on a jog when we found Shoto. He was lost and it was late, so we decided to feed him before helping him get home. Izuku finally settled on. It was not my proudest moment. Todoroki added to hopeful explain away the reluctance to share that they had. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 snorted. Good going half and half. Half and half? Todoroki asked. Kaken likes to give people nicknames cause he's bad at remembering their actual names, Izuku explained. Shut up, Deku. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 yelled, throwing a dumpling at him. Izuku caught it in his mouth with a grin. Thanks for the food. Todoroki snorted, while Inko and Yagi straight up started laughing. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 growled and started to scream. All in all, though, everyone would agree that it was a very successful and fun-filled day. Sundays were Todoroki's free days. Because of that, more often than not he would spend the night with Izuku on Saturday nights. His father actually approved of it when he learned that they would spar together and work on renovating the shop. He considered it good for Todoroki's future. Izuku turned and looked at Todoroki. They always shared Izuku's bed, and there was no awkwardness about it because of how close they were. Hey, how much progress did you make in the lower level? Todoroki smiled at him in return. I finished the common room that the stairs descend into. Izuku grinned and nodded. Good. He looked back at his dry erase board. Let's see, you need to finish up the hallways, then the other rooms, hook up some electricity, and work on plumbing. It would be better if we could get our own source of electricity or else it's going to be suspicious. Maybe solar panels. That could work. Izuku yawned. We got a lot done, but there is still so much to do. He was quiet for a moment before looking back at Todoroki. Want to come with me tomorrow when I train with All Might? Sometimes he's a little too much for me, so it would be nice to have you there. Todoroki smiled. Sure. I have been wanting to see what he's making you do to train. Nothing too bad, just cleaning up a beach. Cleaning up a beach? What beach? Todoroki didn't get an answer though, because Izuku was fast asleep. On the day of the UA exams, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 and Izuku met All Might on 𝗕𝗶𝗯𝗹𝗶 Municipal Beach Park, the place Izuku had to clean up. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 wouldn't admit it, of course, but he was impressed that Izuku managed to clean it all. Ah, young 𝗵𝗃𝗃, young Midoriya. The two teenagers turned to see All Might in his muscle form. I'm sorry that you had to come this early, but I wanted to make sure Midoriya was strong enough. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 rolled his eyes and looked away. Izuku only smiled. It's all right. So, something you must know is that to pass on my quirk, I will need you to ingest some of my DNA. All Might had said it so casually, it took Izuku and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 a second to actually process what he said. When they did, however, what the F? All Might was used to 𝗵𝗃𝗃 swearing, but to hear Izuku swear it was a surprise, to say the least. He cleared his throat though and plucked out a strand of hair. Trust me, I had almost the same reaction. Eat this. He held out the strand of hair. Izuku stared at it long and hard, like he was wondering how all his life choices lead to this. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was growing impatient though, so he grabbed the hair out of All Might's hands and shoved it into Izuku's mouth. Hurry up, you DMN nerd, or else we'll be late. Needless to say, Izuku eventually managed to swallow the hair and the teens went on their way after a few more words from All Might. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 almost died laughing after Izuku fell and was only saved by a girl using her quirk on him. He managed to quiet down in time for the presentation held by 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃, though. It was hard to stay that way with Izuku's mumbling, but he was used to it. Sometimes it was even helpful to hear what Izuku was talking about. May I ask a question? Izuku and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 looked over to where another examinee was standing. They both wanted to point out that he already did, but they restrained themselves. Okay. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 yelled as he pointed at the teen. On the printout, there are 4 kinds of villains. If that's a misprint, then UEA, the most prominent school in Japan, should be ashamed. He was cut off by another voice. Maybe if you didn't interrupt 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃, he would have brought that up. Plus, the paper clearly states that it's 0 points. All eyes fell on Izuku. He didn't even mean to say it, but it slipped out. Izuku couldn't help it though, he considering 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 one of the best heroes. He did lots of charity work with his radio show and was constantly shown to be doing good. He wasn't just going to let a nobody disrespect him like that. The teen seemed shocked, but he quickly recovered and pointed at Izuku. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here for a pleasure trip, then you should leave immediately. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was the one who spoke up this time. It's a nervous tic he has. If you're going to be distracted by every noise you hear, then how are you going to function when there's chaos around you during the exams? Plus, Deku has probably worked way harder than you could ever dream of to get here. Did you spend 10 months clearing a beach of trash like broken down cars to prepare for the exams? I don't think so. Izuku looked at 𝗵𝗃𝗲 in surprise. He never imagined that the explosive teen would defend him. There was an awkward silence for a few seconds before Present Mic broke it. Okay. Examine number 7111. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and Izuku settled down as Present Mic continued talking. Izuku glanced at 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and smiled. Thank you. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 glanced at him and said nothing, but it was clear that he acknowledged Izuku. While waiting for the exam to start, Izuku started doing some stretches. He wasn't nervous, unlike all of the other examinees. And Izuku could tell they were nervous. Throughout the years he picked up a lot of skills, and reading people was one of them. None of it mattered though, because Izuku already knew what his results were going to be. Maybe he would destroy a villain or two, but he was going to fail. He was going to sabotage himself. He spotted the girl who saved him earlier. Izuku was considering going over there and thanking her, maybe asking some things about her quirk, when a hand gripped his shoulder. It was the same person from earlier. That girl appears to be trying to focus. What are you doing here? Are you taking the entrance exam to interfere with everyone else? Izuku looked him dead in the eye and brushed the guy's hand off his shoulder. To me, it seems like you're the one trying to interfere with everyone. I just wanted to tell her thanks for stopping me from falling earlier, and maybe offer her some help in return. Teamwork is vital for heroes, so it makes sense that it would be helpful here as well. Izuku could hear people talking about him, but he didn't care. He was used to that. All right, start. Everyone looked up to where Present Mic was in confusion. What's wrong? There are no countdowns in a real fight. Run. He was still talking when everyone rushed forward as one. Izuku stayed at the back of the crowd, and when he entered the exam area, there were already broken robots all over. Maybe I don't even have to fake it, he mumbled to himself as he ran around, pretending to look for robots. He was almost relieved by the fact that he couldn't find a single robot to destroy. Soon the exam would end, and he would be able to pass one for all to someone else more worthy. When the 0-pointer came out, Izuku was going to run away with the rest of the crowd, but then he spotted someone. It was the same girl as before, only now she was trapped by rubble and about to be crushed by the giant robot. He knew others spotted her too, yet they all ran away. Izuku almost wanted to laugh. They wanted to be heroes when they wouldn't even stop to save one person. Instead, Izuku rushed forward and summoned one for all. Using it, he punched the robot and destroyed it. It was only as he was starting to fall, however, that Izuku noticed his predicament. 1. Almost all of his limbs were broken. He was going to have some words with All Might later. 2nd, he didn't even know if he would be able to, considering he was hurtling to the ground with no way to stop himself. Great, this is just great. Maybe Shoto can help my mom finish my plans, because I sure as hell won't be able to when I reach the ground and become a human pancake. Thanks a lot All Might for telling me that my limbs were going to break when I use one for all, or did that just not cross your mind? He was forced to stop muttering when a hand slapped his face. On the bright side, he didn't become a human pancake. Instead, he was floating until the girl next to him released her quirk and he fell to the ground. At least he would live. Too bad I didn't get a single point, though, he muttered. Not that it mattered. He didn't want to pass anyway. The exam timer went off and the hero recovery girl came and healed him before he was whisked off to the infirmary. Not long after, both 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and Todoroki had found him. Wow, All Might's quirk is really something. You broke your legs and arm just by using it. Todoroki glanced Izuku over. Diamond nerd. You didn't get a single point. How else are you supposed to get in? Izuku shrugged the best he could. I guess I'm just not cut out to be a hero. Maybe I can see if I can pass one for all on to you, Kaken. Bakugo shook his head before a look of disgust took over his face. No way in hell am I eating some of your hair. What? Todoroki asked, confusion clear on his face. The other two quickly explained what happened this morning and Todoroki shuddered. Don't even think about giving it to me either. I'm not fond of eating hair either. Izuku snorted. It's not too bad. Maybe I could mix it into a shake for you guys. I'm surprised that all three of you know about One for All. All Might tends to be very careful about who knows about it. They all jumped at Recovery Girl's voice. In the future, I advise that you don't speak about it where anyone could hear you. Yes, ma'am, the muttered. Todoroki was with Izuku when the letter came with his results. Izuku almost didn't bother opening it, knowing what the results were going to be. His mother and Todoroki urged him to though, so he did with them next to him. Izuku pretty much zoned out when he learned he passed all thanks to saving the girl. When the hologram shut off, the three who were sitting there all exchanged looks. So this messes up my plans? I mean, you could just do what I plan on doing. Trying to find people to join us while pretending you want to be a hero, Todoroki suggested. I'll continue working on the shop, and you two can just join after school and on weekends. Just use this as an opportunity for more training and to take notes on future heroes. Inko patted Izuku's back. Izuku sighed. I guess I have no choice. But this means that I'll have to keep One for All, which also means that we have to find out why you're breaking your limbs when you use it. Izuku, what do you do when you're trying to use One for All? Todoroki asked. Well, Izuku thought about it. When I want to use, I just feel like I'm flipping a 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and direct it into the limbs I want to use it in. Todoroki sighed. Izuku, that's not how quirks work. I think I see the problem, Inko agreed. What? Izuku asked, looking in between the two. With quirks, you don't just turn it off. It's always on. Instead, think of it more like a faucet. The water is always flowing, but you turn the handle to get it to come out, Todoroki explained. And you shouldn't focus it in just one place. You should let it flow through you, Inko added. Izuku nodded, while internally he was thinking about how stupid he was to not have thought about it. Before he could say anything though, his phone buzzed with two texts. One from All Might, wanting to meet him on the beach, and one from Bakugo, saying he wanted to talk. Izuku texted Bakugo that he would meet him at his house before standing up and addressing the other two in the room. All Might wants to meet at the beach. You two go. I'll stay here and make dinner. Stop by Katsuki's and invite them all over to celebrate, will you? Inko asked. Yep. We'll be right back. Izuku grabbed Todoroki's hand and dragged him away. They left the apartment and stopped by Bakugo's house to see him waiting outside. Hey, my mom invited you guys over for dinner. Can you go tell your mom real quick? Then we can talk while we head to the beach. All Might wanted to talk to me too. Yeah, whatever. Bakugo was only gone for a minute before he came back. Alright, listen up. If you're going to be my sidekick in the future, then you're going to have to learn how to use that quirk. He yelled as they started walking to the beach. Izuku nodded. My mom and Todoroki started helping me. Turns out not having a quirk before means that I don't know how to use one. Who would have guessed? His voice was thick with sarcasm. Bakugo rolled his eyes. If it was that obvious, then why didn't you ask someone? Todoroki snickered. He has a point, Izuku. Of course I do you half and half be. So, I wonder if we'll all be in the class, Izuku said, trying to change the subject. I hope so. At least, I hope I'm in the same one as you, Izuku. Todoroki smiled at Izuku. Bakugo growled. Izuku chuckled. I just hope I don't get in the same class as that one guy with engines in his legs. He's kind of an butt. Bakugo and Todoroki both snorted. It was always weird to hear Izuku swear, but they both agreed with him. Todoroki might not have met him, but he did hear a lot about him. They talked a little more as they arrived at the beach, mostly about what to expect from their classes. Young Midoriya. And young Todoroki and young Bakugo as well. I did not expect you to. Midoriya grinned at Yagi, but it was obvious that he was not happy. You know, that's funny. Do you want to know something I didn't expect? Midoriya suddenly frowned. I didn't expect to break my arm and legs when I used my new quirk. Yagi looked around, a little panicked, but luckily no one was nearby to hear. Well, I did warn you that it would hurt your body. You said that I was ready for it. Well, I meant that your body wouldn't explode from all the power. Realistically, you could probably only handle around 9% of the power right now, Yagi explained. 9%. Alright, Izuku started muttering. So if I use what I now know from Shoto and my mother and I apply it all over and don't turn it off, then combine that with the knowledge that I can only use around 9% of my quirk, then I should be alright. But then again, if I'm wrong, I could end up in a body cast and I would not be able to be healed by the time I need to start at UA. Not to mention the rest of middle school. But still, I should try it just to see if I could. No one interrupted Izuku's mumbling. It was obvious he was figuring something out, so it was best to let him. Alright, I'll try it. Try what, young Midoriya? Yagi asked. Izuku took in a deep breath. As soon as he released it, red lines appeared all over his skin, and green lightning danced around his body. It worked. What the hell is that? Bakugo jumped back as soon as it happened. Well, one for all, I guess. Izuku looked himself over. I'm only using 9%, and I have it flowing through my body instead of at just 1 point. Splendid, young Midoriya. I figured you would get a handle on it. Yagi grinned. Like hell you did. Bakugo yelled. You were just going to let him figure it out on his own. Well, when I inherited one for all, my body was already perfect for it, so I didn't think about it too much. Yagi glanced away. I can't believe you're going to be our teacher. As it turned out, they were all in the same class. Bakugo went ahead of them though, so it was just Todoroki and Izuku as they made their way to class. I wonder what our teacher is going to be like, Izuku said. Hopefully a good one. Izuku hummed in agreement and glanced around. They were alone. Remember the plan? Of course. Izuku chuckled. Yeah, of course. And don't forget, I'm going to act differently than usual. Don't let it throw you off. When they stepped into class, Izuku was disappointed, but not too surprised to see Ida there. He had learned his name thanks to the leaderboard he saw and some online digging. Currently, Ida was harassing Bakugo about having his feet on the desk. Bakugo sent them a look that almost looked like a plea to get him out of his argument with Ida. It caused Ida to look over at them though. Izuku was fairly surprised to see everyone turn to look at him. Slipping into his new role though, he stepped back to hide slightly behind Todoroki, acting almost shy. He planned to seem disarming, like he was just a wide-eyed boy with a head filled with fantasies about being a hero. Of course, Todoroki wasn't going to be fooled, and hopefully, Bakugo will only write it off as Izuku being skeptical of new classmates, considering what his old ones did to him. Bakugo may have stopped bullying him, but it didn't mean others hadn't. Oh, hello. Ida started marching over to Izuku and Todoroki. Good morning. I am from Semi-Private Academy. My name is Dash, we heard, Todoroki interrupted. While Izuku was going to act all shy and cute, Todoroki was going to be protective of him. Not that Izuku needed protecting. Ida, right? I'm Midoriya. While Izuku didn't exactly like him, he was planning on playing nice. I'm Todoroki. Todoroki placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Midoriya, you realized that there was something more to that practical exam, didn't you? Ida asked. Izuku raised an eyebrow and moved closer to Todoroki. And no, not really. Uraraka was in trouble, so I helped her. It's something that a hero should do, right? Save those in need. Even if it was just a test. It looked like she was really in trouble. Izuku glanced around awkwardly and messed with his hands. Todoroki had to admit, Izuku was a really good actor. If he was being his honest self, he probably would have said something about how he shouldn't have been the only one to try and save her. Then again, he pretty much did, only in nicer terms. I recognize that hair. You're the boy who saved me. Izuku turned to see Uraraka standing there. He grinned. Hello. I never got to thank you for saving me, not once but twice. Uraraka chuckled. Well, you saved me from being crushed by a giant robot, so I think that's thanks enough. If you're here to make friends, then you should leave now. Izuku had to admit, Aizawa was a frightening guy. He got over his surprise by the time they got down to the field though. Aizawa talked about the tests they were going to do, had Bakugo throw, and everything was good. The person who places in last will be expelled. Izuku, for a good moment, thought about purposely getting last. It wouldn't work though. Bakugo knew he had control over his quirk, and he saw All Might was watching. It would only raise eyebrows. First was the race. Just as he was about to activate One for All, however, it disappeared. He didn't even have time to be shocked before he was wrapped up in his teacher's scarf and was given a lecture about how he would make himself a liability if he broke his bones. Izuku thought that he would be able to get away with not using his quirk for a second there, so he would easily be able to fail convincingly and get expelled. Actually, sir, Izuku has full control over his quirk. As long as he doesn't use too much of it, he's fine. The only reason he used all of it at the entrance exam was the fact that he probably wouldn't have been able to stop the robot with only a fraction of his quirk. Todoroki cut in. Let Deku go so that we can race already. Bakugo yelled. Aizawa looked at Todoroki, then Bakugo, and finally back at Izuku. Alright then. Show me. Izuku internally groaned and activated his quirk. His classmates were surprised to see the lightning and red lines, sans Bakugo and Todoroki. Izuku ended up beating Bakugo by a full second, much to the latter's anger. They continued going through the tests and Midoriya was actually doing really good. By the end of it, Izuku ended up in the top 10 and a boy named Mineta ended up being at the bottom. By the way, I lied. I'm not expelling anyone. While most people were relieved, Izuku was secretly disappointed that even if he did end up in last place, he wouldn't have been expelled. Still, though, he just leaned against Todoroki and sighed. I was wondering, but exactly is the relationship between you two? Yaoyorozu asked. At the same time, Izuku said friends, while Todoroki said MSTR and lackey. Izuku looked at Todoroki, fake offense on his face. You are not my lackey. Who said you were my Todoroki asked, wiggling his eyebrows. Izuku snorted. Well, if I'm your lackey, then why are you letting me lean on you? Because I know how to take care of my lackeys, obviously. Wait, so you two aren't dating? Kaminari asked. Izuku and Todoroki turned bright red. Some flames were even popping up on Todoroki's left shoulder. No, it's nothing like that. We're just friends, Izuku clarified. Like I would even deserve to date Sunshine Incarnate, Todoroki mumbled, but everyone heard. Shoto no. Shoto yes. Izuku stuck his tongue out and pushed Todoroki, causing him to fall to the ground laughing. Bakugo took the opportunity to push Izuku, causing the boy to squeak as he fell on Todoroki. Of course, this only made Bakugo laugh while Todoroki laughed harder. Kaken. Bakugo knew what was coming and ran, while Izuku ran after him, lighting dancing on his body. Todoroki eventually got up and ran after them, while the rest of the class was left in the dust, confused about the whole thing. As Todoroki, Bakugo, and Izuku were heading home, Todoroki was spending the whole week at Izuku's since Endeavor was out on a mission for a while. Ida suddenly appeared next to Izuku. I was really taken in by Aizawa-sensei. I even thought, this is the best of the best and such. Izuku jumped, while Bakugo and Todoroki both just went, oh. Where the hell did you come from, Four Eyes? Ida continued like he didn't just scare the SHT out of them. I didn't think a teacher would encourage us with a lie. Izuku shared a look with Todoroki. This guy was certainly passionate. Hey, you guys. All four looked back to see Uraraka running up to them. Going to the station. Wait for me. Uraraka? Izuku questioned. Ah, you're the Infinity Girl, Ida said as she caught up to them. I'm Achiko Uraraka. She looked at Ida. You're Tenya Ida. She then looked at Todoroki. Shoto Todoroki. She looked at Bakugo. Kaken Bakugo. She questioned, then looked at Izuku. And Deku Midoriya? Kaken. Deku. Todoroki couldn't stop himself from laughing as Bakugo looked at Uraraka with offense all over his face and Izuku looked away, sulking. Oh, am I wrong? But that's what you two called each other. My name is Katsuki Bakugo. Don't forget it. Bakugo yelled while his fingertips sparked. My name is Izuku Midoriya. Kaken used to call me Deku to make fun of me. We're friends now, but the name stuck. We were also friends when we were little because our moms knew each other, so I call him Kaken, Izuku explained. An insult? Ida questioned. Oh, is that right? Sorry. Uraraka rubbed the back of her head. But 𝗓𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗃 sounds like the Japanese word for, you can do it. So I kinda like it. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 gave her a look that meant he thought she was crazy. Izuku just shrugged though. You can call me that if you want. I don't really care either way. But 𝗵𝘃𝗲, if you were friends with Midoriya, why would you insult him? Ida asked. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 glanced at Izuku. It's not like they could straight up say it was because he was quirkless. Luckily Izuku was quick to cover. Oh, well, I was a late bloomer when it came to my quirk, so we thought I was quirkless for a year or two. Of course, once it popped up we started hanging out again. Still, that is a horrible reason to dash Ida. It's fine now. It's in the past, and it's going to stay there, Izuku said, leaving no room to argue. Anyway, we better hurry if we're going to catch the train. He looked at Todoroki. Do we need to stop by your house at all? Or do you have everything? I have everything I need at your house. Todoroki gave him a stoic thumbs up. What are you two doing? Uraraka asked. Oh, Todoroki's spending the week at my place since his father is going to be gone. We're coming up with some training plans and stuff. Kaken is spending the night too, Izuku said while grinning. That sounds like fun. My home is too far away, so I had to get an apartment closer to school. It is a little lonely, honestly. Maybe I should invite some of the girls from class over soon. Uraraka grinned at the thought. I think that girl with pink skin, 𝗓𝗏𝗄, and the invisible girl, 𝗕𝗁𝘁𝗄, seem like the type who would, Izuku suggested. I'll ask them tomorrow. Uraraka decided. They walked the rest of the way to the train station and eventually Ida and Uraraka left. 𝗵𝘃𝗲, Todoroki, and Izuku arrived at Izuku's house and they stayed up a little too late playing video games. It was a little weird to some people that they had regular classes as well as hero courses, but Izuku liked it. Especially when English came around. He liked learning languages and was currently learning JSL along with ASL. It would be useful for when he finished with Japan and decided to go international with his plans. Which one of these sentences is correct? Present Mike asked, pointing at the board. Well, it's definitely not the first one, Izuku and Todoroki said at the same time, causing everyone to look at them. The sentence in question was, the man whom I respect the most is my father, which wasn't true for either of them. Are you two okay? Kirishima hesitantly asked. Izuku had decided to give up his charade last night. It was too exhausting to pretend to be super cheerful. It also didn't help that he didn't get much sleep. Emotionally or physically. Because those will result in different answers. Speak for yourself. It will be no for me no matter what, Todoroki objected. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 burst out laughing at that. They did settle down though and it was eventually time for lunch. Todoroki and Izuku sat together, obviously, and Uraraka, Ida, and 𝗵𝘃𝗲 joined them. Izuku did go a little into fanboy mode at seeing lunch rush though. He helped feed the poor and needy, so he was good in Izuku's eyes. After that though was hero basic training, and Izuku almost laughed at how All Might entered. The only ones not growing excited were him, Todoroki, and 𝗵𝘃𝗲. To be fair though, those three saw him pretty often. Once All Might mentioned combat training, however, 𝗵𝘃𝗲 got super hyped. It made Izuku worry a little bit, but 𝗵𝘃𝗲 was most likely not going to really hurt anyone, so it would be alright. Hopefully. Izuku was a little excited when it came to the costumes, though. His mom had made most of it, so he only needed to request support items. So, when he came out of the tunnel in his outfit, he felt some pride when people turned to look at him. He was wearing a white dress shirt with a black vest over it. The sleeves went to his wrist, but he had rolled them up to his elbows to make room for his black gloves that the support team made to help protect his hands when he punched things. He was also wearing black slacks and black dress shoes, but underneath them, he had sock-like clothing that supported his legs for kicks. Overall, he looked more like he was going to a party than he was a hero, but he didn't really care. Wow, Deku. You look so fancy. Uraraka said, looking him over. Izuku chuckled. Thanks. My mom is a seamstress, so I kinda had to learn how to dress nice. Your costume looks cute. Oh, thank you. I wish I was a little more specific though because it's a tighter than I planned. Izuku nodded. Maybe you can get it changed later. Do you know where Todoroki is? Oh, I thought he was with you. Uraraka trailed off and looked behind Izuku. Izuku turned to see Todoroki stepping out of the tunnel with his costume. Inko had also made Todoroki a costume. His had on what almost looked like a black, silk button-up long-sleeve shirt with the top few buttons undone. He was also wearing black slacks like Izuku with black dress shoes. Looking closer, Izuku could see that the fabric of the shirt was the new fireproof material Inko had gotten. "Why do you two look more like you're dressed for the runway instead of hero work?" 𝗧𝗏 asked. "I want to leave a good impression on the villains," Izuku answered, putting as much sarcasm as he could into his voice. It made a few of his classmates laugh, so he considered it a win. "Anyway, my mom is a seamstress, so I'm used to the saying the clothes make the man. I couldn't really think of any designs for my hero costume, so I decided on something that leaves people with a good impression. I just decided to copy Izuku," Todoroki answered honestly. "Either way, you guys look really hot," Ishido called out, causing a faint blush to appear on Izuku and Todoroki's cheeks. "Now, it's time for combat training," All Might yelled, gathering their attention. "Sensei," Ida called out. "This is a battle center from the entrance exam, so will we be conducting urban battles again?" "Ida, remember what I told you earlier. Let the adults finish talking, then ask questions," Izuku said. He was probably going to explain what we're doing when you interrupted him. Ida had the decency to bow and apologize, while All Might held out his hand. "That's all right, young Ida. Most of the time, fighting villains takes place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals. In this society filled with heroes, truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows." If anyone noticed Izuku and Todoroki share a look at that last line, they didn't say anything. All Might went on to explain what was going to happen, and Izuku happened to end up in a group with Todoroki. All Might picked some ball out of a box, and it was ironic that Izuku and Todoroki ended up being the villains against Bakugo and Ida. When they went inside to plan, Todoroki and Izuku shared knowing glances, finding this hilarious in a way. "They can probably hear us, so watch your potty mouth," Todoroki warned. Izuku heard what he really meant though. "I'm more worried about you." Izuku gently elbowed Todoroki in the ribs. "We should get into character. You are a great actor, after all," Todoroki suggested. "That I am." Up in the control room, the rest of the class and All Might watched and listened. To All Might's knowledge, the speaker systems were new. Other students used to not be able to hear what was going on. "You know, they really do look the part," 𝗧𝗏𝗄𝗏 pointed out. "I'm excited to see Midoriya act, honestly." Kaminari had perked up as soon as Todoroki had said Izuku was a good actor. "That can be a great trait to have when you're a hero. Whether it be calming down civilians or bluffing villains," Yaoyorozu added. The class watched as Izuku activated his quirk and Todoroki made an ice prison around the weapon. They had chosen to hide on the 5th floor, where everything was a cluttered mess. Ida wouldn't be able to use his quirk well there. They chose a good location. "The hero team will be at a disadvantage with all the junk," Shoji acknowledged. "Deku seems to be really smart, and he and Todoroki are best friends." The buzzard rang out, signaling the start of the exam. It was then that Izuku slipped into his villain persona. Izuku ran a hand through his hair and grinned. It wasn't a happy grin though, more along the lines of insane. "It looks like the heroes have found our location. It would be a shame if they activated some of the traps we laid down." Izuku almost purred. It definitely sent a shiver down a lot of people's spines. "Do you want me to take care of them, boss?" Todoroki had also slipped into his villain persona. His breath was visible thanks to him activating his ice quirk, and his face gained a cold, indifferent look. "Not yet. I want to have some fun with them." "Alrighty, that is just straight up terrifying," Kirishima said. "It's almost like he's a completely different person," Hagakure yelled. It didn't take long to hear Ida and Bakugo's panicked voices as they came across the first trap. Todoroki had laid down a thin, barely visible layer of ice that they had slipped on. Izuku chuckled, and it was one of the scariest things that a lot of people had heard. They seemed to have found the first trap. A pause, then even more panicked yelling. "Oh, and the second one too." This time, Bakugo and Ida had ended up tangled in a web of wires Izuku had laid out. "Remind me not to get on Midoriya's bad side," 𝗧𝗏 said as they continued watching. After a few more minutes, 𝗧𝗓 and 𝗵𝘃𝗲 were almost on the 5th floor, both of them agitated from all of the traps. Izuku sighed. Alright, I guess that's enough fun and games. Shoto, you know what to do. Of course, boss. Todoroki took one step forward with his right foot, then suddenly, almost the entire building was covered in ice aside from where Izuku was with the bomb. 𝗵𝘃𝗲's swearing just showed that he got caught in it. Todoroki wasted no time in rushing to the hero team and capturing 𝗧𝗓 with the tape. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 managed to get free of the ice though and was rushing toward the weapon. Izuku's laughter had him stop dead in his tracks. He had never heard Izuku laugh like that. Kaken, how did you escape my little henchman? No matter, though, I can take care of you myself. Izuku's voice seemed to bounce off the walls, but he was nowhere to be seen. Alright, I need to know how Midoriya is so good at acting. I could never do that. Ashido whined. I have a feeling that this is about to be over. Ashui was right. In a flash of green, 𝗵𝘃𝗲 was tackled to the ground and his arms were tied up with capture tape. And there, straddling his hips, was Midoriya. Sorry, Kaken, but it looks like I win this time. Izuku said in a sing-song voice as All Might called out the hero team's loss. As soon as it ended, Izuku seemed to snap back to his normal self and helped 𝗵𝘃𝗲 up, untying him as well. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 could only stand there in shock though, looking at Izuku like he was a ghost. Deck what the F? Izuku chuckled. Well, I took a lot of drama classes for fun, back when I was exploring other career paths. It wasn't a total lie. He had taken a lot of drama classes for fun, but he still knew what he was going to do. They all ended up back in the control room, where they would be judged by their peers. Now class, who do you think the MVPs of this round were? All Might asked. Yaoyorozu raised her hand. Midoriya was definitely one of them. He set multiple traps along with Todoroki and got very well into the role of a villain. A little too much into character, she trailed off remembering Izuku's performance. At least if I can't become a pro hero for real, I could always pretend to be one on stage, Izuku joked. Seriously dude, you almost scared the CRP out of us? Kaminari yelled. It was super creepy. You better not do it again. Mineta also yelled. Now, could anyone really blame Izuku for what he did next? Izuku blinked and suddenly he had a creepy smile on his face and his eyes radiated danger. But it's so fun to get into character, Mineta. Do I really seem like a villain to you? Mineta almost passed out at that point. Izuku no. Todoroki gently hit Izuku's head. Izuku yes, Izuku said, but he still slipped out of his villain persona. All Might cleared his throat. Young Midoriya, please don't do that again. It's too realistic. His tone made it clear that he was also spooked out by Izuku's acting. Anyway, who is the other MVP? I'd say Todoroki. He also laid down some traps and he managed to capture 𝗧𝗓 and almost got 𝗵𝘃𝗲. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 and 𝗧𝗓 kinda rushed in too, which must have made it easier for Midoriya and Todoroki. Correct. 𝗧𝗓 and 𝗵𝘃𝗲, while you two are powerful, you must remember teamwork and try to strategize. All Might then moved on to announce the next match while 𝗵𝘃𝗲 pretty much sulked in a corner, occasionally swearing, and 𝗧𝗓 kinda just lectured himself. The rest of the matches seemed to fly by before they were all off to their next class, and then the second day of UA classes came to a close. Izuku was not happy about the press that was blocking his and Todoroki's way of getting to school. They had both stayed up far too late making plans and working on their base. As soon as the press tried to question them, Izuku used one for all to launch him and Todoroki over the group and into the gates. Aizawa was there to greet them. Aizawa-sensei, I think there are still a lot of students trapped in the mob, Izuku pointed out. I see them. I can grab everyone on the left if you get the ones on the right, Izuku suggested. He may not have liked all of his classmates, but he pretty much hated the press. Anything to get back at them was a win for him. Aizawa seemed to be of the same mindset. Alright. Izuku used one for all to grab several students trapped in the mob while Aizawa grabbed the rest with his capture weapon. Just give us an interview. One of the reporters snapped. She was the same one that tried to question him, Izuku noticed. Izuku almost smiled when she tripped the alarm and was blocked out. I think I understand a little more why you're an underground hero, sensei. The press can be really annoying, Aizawa agreed. Izuku never cared about the class representatives too much. To him, they were the same as any other of his classmates that bullied him. Today though, he kinda had to care, considering he had gotten several votes to be the class representative, with Yaoyorozu as his assistant. He just knew that Todoroki had voted for him. Izuku got to the front of the class and well, what was he supposed to say? Thank you for voting for me as your class representative. I was kinda bullied a lot in middle school, so I didn't pay too much attention to what the class representatives did unless they were yelling insults at me. So, honestly, I don't really know what to do, but when I find out, I'll do my best. Midoriya, Yaoyorozu looked at him in concern. In fact, a lot of the class looked concerned when he said that because, well, Midoriya was really nice even though he made a lot of edgy jokes. It was only the third day yet people already knew that. He had helped a lot of them with random things. Like when Aoyama had lost his mirror and Izuku had found it for him, or when Yaoyorozu was struggling with her hair and Izuku had styled it for her, or when Sato had ripped his sleeve and Izuku had sewn it right then and there with a pocket sewing kit he had. His only response to the thanks he got was that heroes should help when they can, no matter how small the issue. And, of course, he had saved several of them from the press frenzy this morning. It was kind of funny to Todoroki though. If only they knew that he and Izuku were planning on being villains. Lunchtime rolled around after that and honestly, Izuku cared more about sleeping than eating. Still, Todoroki made him eat a little bit before allowing Izuku to fall asleep on his shoulder. You guys are so cute together. I'm still surprised that you're not a couple, Ishido commented. At the moment, Izuku, Todoroki, Ida, Uraraka, Azui, Bakugo, Ishido, Kaminari, Kirishima, and Siro all sat together at the table. Why are you two so tired though? Kaminari asked. We stayed up late working on the shop Izuku's mother is going to open. It is taking a little longer to renovate than planned, so we have to work more, Todoroki answered as he ate more soba. Thank God for cold soba. It is very close to being finished, however, so he should have fewer sleepless nights. Oh yeah, Deku mentioned that his mom is a seamstress, Uraraka mentioned. I'll certainly visit it once it's done. I would be happy to support Midoriya's mother. Ida declared, moving his arms in his usual fashion. Hey, Bakugo, why is it that Midoriya was bullied so much in middle school? He seems like a nice person, Azui eventually asked. Bakugo really wished people stopped asking questions that he couldn't answer. He was about to yell at her, but he knew it would bite him in the butt, so he thought up the best answer he could. Deku had such poor control over his quirk it was almost the same as not having one. He couldn't use it at will, and every time he did he would break his bones. It wasn't until recently that he learned how to control it better. Not exactly a lie. He was just messing with the timeline of things. That's so unmanly of them to bully him for that. I went through a point where I couldn't control my quirk too well either, so I know what it was like, Kirishima chipped in. Before anything else could be said, an alarm started ringing and it was announced that there was a level 3 threat. A third year told them that it meant someone was trespassing on school grounds. Surprisingly, Izuku was still asleep, but Todoroki shook him awake and explained what was happening. They all rushed to the exit only to find that it was a mess of students trying to get through and trampling over others. And we're supposed to be training to be heroes, Izuku looked out the window. It's the press. Why can't they just leave us the hell alone? While everyone was shocked about Izuku swearing, he quickly high-fived Uraraka, making himself weightless, then used one for all to propel him up above the exit. Everybody shut up, he yelled, gaining everyone's attention. Everyone listening. There are no villains, it's just the press. We're supposed to be training to be heroes, yet as soon as something happens, all of you guys start panicking and hurting each other. Instead, act like you're training to be heroes and calmly exit. As soon as he saw people calming down and starting to leave calmly, Izuku headed back to his group. Uraraka released her quirk while Todoroki caught him. Wow, Midoriya, that was dash. Shush. It's nap time. And with that, Izuku passed the out in Todoroki's arms. He gets a little cranky when he's sleep-deprived. Again, he hasn't been sleeping much lately, Todoroki explained. It was true though, Izuku had so much on his mind that sleep just refused to come to him. Still, that was pretty impressive how he handled that, Kirishima pointed out. Todoroki nodded and together their group headed outside with the rest of the student body. Todoroki had carried Izuku all the way back to the classroom and only woke him up when Aizawa entered. Izuku seemed to be confused about where he was until he and Yaoyorozu were pulled up to the front of the class to help with the rest of the elections. "Midoriya, that was really cool how you helped everyone calm down," 𝗧𝗏 yelled out. Izuku squinted at him. Second. What are you talking about? You know, in the cafeteria, during the alarm, Kirishima supplied. Izuku seemed to think for a moment. I have no memory of that. Uraraka giggled. Everyone was panicking, but you used both my quirk and yours to get everyone's attention and calm them down. You were a little rude about it, but it seems like you're sleep-deprived, so it makes sense, Azui mentioned. Yeah, Midoriya, you should get some more sleep. You even swore at us when you woke up. Well, not at us but at the press, Kaminari added. Izuku looked at the wall in horror like his life was flashing before his eyes. I didn't mean to swear, all those extras deserved it, Bakugo declared. And we grew up watching All Might, of course we're going to swear. Oh yeah, All Might does swear a lot, doesn't he? Hagakure acknowledged. At the end of the day though, they managed to get through the other positions. Ida was happy to be given the role of class secretary. It wasn't a class rep, but it was still an important position. When everyone started to head home, Todoroki pulled Izuku aside, letting everyone know to go on without them. Once he was sure they were gone, he started leading Izuku over to the support wing of 𝗧𝗏. What's going on? Todoroki smiled back at him. I found 2 recruits. One's a support student, and the other is a Gen Ed student. Izuku gasped and his eyes gained stars. Shoto, I love you. You're amazing. Todoroki chuckled. I know. Come on, we have to hurry. Izuku kept pace with Todoroki as they traveled to the meeting spot. Once closer, Izuku could make out 2 figures. They were both women. The first one had dark red hair that was shaved on the sides, with a blue bandana covering most of it. The colors kinda clashed, but Izuku wasn't going to say anything. She was wearing black overalls and a red flannel shirt, along with black steel-toed boots. In her gloved hands was a wrench that she was fiddling with. The other girl had long black hair that was currently in a high ponytail. She was wearing the UA uniform, so Izuku assumed she was the Gen Ed student. She was currently scrolling through her phone, looking vaguely annoyed. I'm back, Todoroki spoke up, causing both girls to look at them. The red-haired girl raised an eyebrow. He's your boss. The leader. She looked Izuku over. He looks too innocent for that kind of stuff. The one with black hair glanced Izuku over as well. Aren't you the boy who calmed everyone down in the cafeteria? The redhead gasped. Oh yeah, that was kind of funny. She grinned. I'm Yuna Watanabe. Izuku smiled. Nice to meet you, Watanabe. I'm Izuku Midoriya. He looked at the other girl. And you are? Sighed 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Izuku looked around. So, why do you 2 want to join my group? Watanabe cracked her fingers. You see, those of us in the support department have noticed how heroes tend not to give us any credit and well, basically give us SHT. I mean, my first year here there was a girl who asked me why we're even here. She said that we are just lowly mechanics that don't deserve to be at this school. As she was yelling, some of the metal paneling around them shook a little. Watanabe noticed and took a breath. Sorry, sometimes my quirk goes a little haywire when I'm mad. Anyway, I want to join to show heroes that they should care about us. That they shouldn't take us for granted. Izuku nodded and placed a hand on her shoulder. I promise you, no one in my group will take you for granted. Support techs are some of the most valuable people in society. Watanabe grinned. Then I'm in. Izuku then looked over at 𝗫𝗁𝗄𝗵𝗃. And what about you? I'm not sure that I want to join you yet. I'll keep an eye on you, though, and I'll contact you if I decide that your group will suit me, she decided. Izuku smiled sadly. Well, I hope that you decide to join. 𝗫𝗁𝗄𝗵𝗃 nodded, then walked away. She's kinda weird. She seems nice enough though, Watanabe said before looking back at Izuku and Todoroki. So, do we have a base or something? And should I give you 2 my number? Izuku pulled out his phone. We have a base under my mother's shop. I'll text you the address. What's your number? After the 3 exchanged numbers, They started walking towards the exit, talking about random things. The next day Izuku was pleased to learn that they are going to practice rescue drills at an off-campus site. Back when he still wanted to be a hero, Izuku always wanted to be a rescue hero. The bus ride there was fun though. Izuku had sat down next to Todoroki, which meant that he could use his friend as a pillow. I tend to say whatever comes to mind. He wasn't actually asleep, he just had his eyes closed, which meant he could hear 𝗬𝗓𝗍𝗍. Midoriya. Yeah. Your quirk is like All Might's. Yeah. We both have strength quirks, Izuku mumbled. The only difference is that All Might doesn't get hurt when he uses all of his strength, Kirishima pointed out. Still, that quirk is pretty cool. Mine only hardens my skin, so it's not as flashy. What do you mean? You look so cool. Another obvious tell that Izuku is half asleep, but it still made Kirishima feel better. Thank you. Quirks don't matter though. All that matters is saving people. Someone could be quirkless but they'd still be a hero if they save people. Izuku had given up on sleep, but he still leaned against Todoroki all the same. That is an excellent point, Midoriya. Regardless of our quirks, we need to do our best to save those we can. We can all be heroes if we do our part, 𝗧𝗪𝗓 agreed. Well, it also depends on you yourself. Izuku yawned and sat up. If someone is being a hero for bad reasons, say, to hook up with people, he sent a look at Mineta, who shivered in response. Then I don't think they're really a hero. Not all heroes are good, Todoroki summed it up. Well, as long as they're saving people it doesn't matter their reasons, right? Kaminari asked. Let's use Mineta for example. He says he wants to be a hero to pick up chicks. One day he's doing his work, saving some lives, when there's a pretty girl he has to save. So he saves her, but instead of going to save the rest of the people in need, he creepily hits on her and makes her feel uncomfortable while other people die. Everyone was silent for a moment, taking in his words because hey, that does sound like something Mineta would do. The boy himself looked like he was having an existential crisis. Wow, that's a little harsh, Midoriya, Kirishima eventually said. Izuku shrugged and looked at Uraraka. Why do you want to be a hero? Oh. Uraraka looked away, turning bright red. Well, I want to make money to support my family. They own a small construction company, but it doesn't do well against the bigger ones. I wanted to help with construction, but my parents said to follow my own path. So, I want to be a hero so I can support them. Izuku stared at her, causing her to shrink in on herself, until he smiled. You're becoming a hero to support others. That means you care about other people and their well-being. Uraraka sighed in relief. She had to wonder though, why was Izuku's opinion so important to her? Huh, I guess you have a point? Ishido eventually said. Well, why do you want to be a hero? Kirishima asked. Izuku almost laughed. He didn't want to be a hero. But still, it's not like he could just say that. So, he decided to twist his reasons for being a villain. I want to help those who need. No matter how small. Damn it, Midoriya is so pure. Ishido yelled, pulling said boy into a hug. He's like a cinnamon roll. Hagakure also yelled, hugging Izuku as well. Izuku was confused by all the hugs, but he always loved them. Thank you. He wasn't that pure though. Or a cinnamon roll. Soon enough though, they reached the USJ. Izuku was excited to meet 13 but was a little confused that All Might wasn't there yet. He saw one of his teachers hold up 3 fingers though, and that made him remember all of the work All Might did that morning. He must have used up his time limit. He clued in Bakugo and Todoroki about this, leaving Bakugo swearing under his breath. Just as things were kicking off, however, a purple mist flooded the plaza, and Class 1A came face to face with real villains. Izuku was tempted to join Aizawa when the man jumped into the horde of villains. Alas, he was ordered not to, so he had to retreat like the good little student he was pretending to be. They were stopped by the warp villain before they could leave though, and Bakugo and Kirishima rushed in to attack the villain. And that's how Izuku ended up on a boat with Azui and Mineta while surrounded by villains, talking about their quirks. Alright, so here's the plan. I'm going to use some of my acting on them, then I'll use my quirk to make a whirlpool in the water. Then Azui you'll dash, call me Tsu, you'll grab Mineta and then jump over the chaos, grabbing me on the way. Got it? 𝗬𝗓𝗏 and Mineta nodded. Izuku grinned. Time to see if I can out-villain the villains. Izuku stepped up to the railing of the boat and donned his villain persona. He giggled. It's funny, you know. He successfully gained their attention. You have no idea what our quirks are. For all you know, I could fry your brains with a snap of my fingers. To emphasize his point, he snapped. Snap. He was delighted to see some of the villains jump. It was pretty silly to not research our quirks. It's like your leader doesn't care whether you live or die if he won't give you details like that. Are we sure that kid is in the hero course? One of the villains asked. Oh, but of course. Why else would I be here? But if you guys want to see my quirk, how about I show you? I hope you like it. Well, for the few seconds before you become unconscious. Or die. Either one, really, considering we're in the middle of the water and I doubt all of can avoid drowning. Izuku then looked down at them with a bored expression. Well, that's enough talking. Time for action. As soon as he powered up his quirk, several of the villains started to swim away. I'm not dealing with this. One yelled. That guy is going to kill us. Another shouted. Izuku smiled back at 𝗬𝗓𝗏 and Mineta, the latter of them sobbing from fear. Ready? 𝗬𝗓𝗏 nodded, springing Izuku into action as he jumped over the railings and performed a 10% punch at the water. Sure enough, it caused a whirlpool effect that even the villains swimming away got caught up in. His arm hurt a little, but nothing too bad. 𝗬𝗓𝗏 wrapped her tongue around him as they escaped the shipwreck zone, and Izuku was pleased to see Mineta had thrown his ball to further trap the villains. When they landed down at the shore, 𝗬𝗓𝗏 gave Izuku a weird look. That was almost too convincing. Izuku shrugged. It stopped them from attacking us, and I doubt any of them got seriously hurt, so I call that a win. An explosion drew their attention back to the plaza. Aizawa was still fighting the villains. We could probably take out a few guys on the edge of the battle. Make things easier for Aizawa-sensei. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 and Mineta looked at Izuku like he was crazy. You guys don't have to. I'm going to though, Izuku said as he got out of the water. We stick to the edge and stay out of harm's way, 𝗬𝗏𝗏 clarified. Izuku nodded. He then looked at Mineta, who was shaking. You could help if you threw your ball at the villain's feet. Or do you need a hot woman to motivate you? His voice almost dripped with malice in his last sentence, spurring the smaller boy to quickly join them. Izuku grinned. Good to know you can do things without being obsessed with girls. Now let's go. Over with Todoroki, he was that he got separated from Izuku. And since no one besides the villains were around to his knowledge, he let loose and froze every villain he saw to the point where their cells would slowly start to die. He went up to one of the villains with a cold expression on his face. Hey, at this rate, your cells will slowly die. He almost smirked when pure horror attached itself to all the villains' faces. My boss wouldn't like it if I ended up killing anyone though. He stepped closer to a villain and held up his hand, releasing some frost. On what basis do you think you can kill All Might? What's your plan? Aizawa was both frustrated yet proud of his students. They had joined the fray, yet they also were using hit-and-run tactics to stay out of danger. Plus, Mineta's quirk was able to trap a lot of villains and save him some trouble. It was probably Izuku's idea for the hit-and-run tactics. He would have to talk to him later about it. And he was right, it was Izuku's idea, and Izuku was happy to see that his plan was working. With all the hit-and-runs, they had taken out a lot of villains and definitely made things easier for Aizawa. There came a point though, where Aizawa's elbow started crumbling, and he was slammed to the ground by what they soon learned was called a nomu. It was at that point that Izuku decided that the time for hit-and-runs was over. I'm going to get that thing off of Aizawa. Use that opportunity to grab him, then get him out of here with Mineta's help. And no, now is not the time for arguing. I'm fast enough, I'll be fine. Before 𝗬𝗏𝗏 could argue, Izuku flew forward and punched the nomu in the head, luckily knocking him off of Aizawa. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 didn't waste any time in grabbing Aizawa with her tongue, and with a last look at Izuku, she and Mineta ran. Izuku smirked and looked at Shigaraki. Sorry, but I figured it would be boring for you to beat on someone who was already injured. It was that moment that Kurojirai appeared by Shigaraki's side and gave him his report. Izuku suppressed the grin threatening to take over his face when he learned someone escaped and Shigaraki started freaking out. Before we go, though, let's smash some of his pride as the symbol of peace. Shigaraki yelled, looking at Izuku. Izuku chuckled and held his hands up. Yeah, you could very well do that. I mean, you already did, to be fair. Breaking into the USJ, releasing a bunch of villains on his students, and hurting his coworker. That's already such a low blow. There's something that you didn't account for though. Shigaraki tilted his head. And what is that? Izuku chuckled and grinned at Shigaraki. Well, it's kind of a secret. Promise you won't tell anyone else. Shigaraki chuckled. Sure, I'll play. What's this secret of yours? I don't actually plan on being a hero. You see? Izuku smirked. I'm planning on being the top villain. Shigaraki only stared at him for a second, not knowing if he heard Izuku right. When he realized he did, however, he burst out laughing. Is that so? Then why don't you come join us right now? Well, I don't know your ideals besides kill all might, which doesn't really interest me. Izuku shrugged. Honestly, if you want to gain more recruits, then you need better advertising. Fair enough. But what exactly are your ideals? Shigaraki asked. Well, I simply want to get rid of the bad heroes. I don't like the villains who kill random people either, I suppose, Izuku answered. It just seems weird to me why you would waste your time doing that. The cleanup is always such a hassle too. I guess with your quirk it's a little easier. Shigaraki chuckled. I think I like you. What's your name? Well, my real name is Izuku Midoriya, but for my villain name, well, I guess you could call me Boss. Boss. Well, aren't you cocky? I really want you on my team now. Before they could discuss anything else, the doors slammed open, and All Might entered looking between Bakugo, Kirishima, Todoroki, Izuku, and All Might. It was a quick battle that ended with the villains retreating after the other pros showed up. Bakugo, Todoroki, and Izuku managed to chase away Kirishima before All Might's time ran out and he transformed into his true self. You three were really brave today, Yagi praised them as he sat down. I have to wonder though, how did you end up alone with the villains Midoriya? And what were they telling you? Izuku shrugged. I was with 𝗬𝗵𝗲 in the shipwreck zone, we escaped, and then we tried to help Aizawa-sensei because he was lagging. When he got captured by the Nomu, I had 𝗬𝗵𝗲 escape with Aizawa-sensei while I held the villains back. They mostly just boasted about how they were going to kill you but they didn't. I'm glad they didn't. You idiot. How did you expect to hold the villains back? They had something as strong as All Might, and you can only use 9% of the power All Might has. You could have died. Bakugo yelled. I know. That's why I didn't use force. I talked to them. I got them monologuing and distracted them long enough for All Might to arrive. If I didn't, Aizawa-sensei could have died. Izuku felt a few tears run down his face. It was weird, honestly. He hadn't known Aizawa for even a week, yet he already cared about his teacher. If he thought about it, it was probably because he respected the man. He only let people who had the potential to be good heroes be in his class, and if they didn't shape up, he would have no problem expelling them. Aizawa only wanted good heroes out on the street, just like Izuku. Todoroki gently pulled Izuku into a hug and rubbed his back. I think you did well. Yagi sighed. What you did was reckless, but it worked out. I would be a hypocrite if I scolded you for that. All Might. There you are, 𝗵𝗲𝗄 yelled out as he approached them. Ah, 𝗵𝗲𝗄. How is everyone? The only ones with major injuries are 13 and Eraserhead, but they'll live. All of the students are fine, 𝗵𝗲𝗄 reported. That's good to know, Yagi said, then sighed. Damn, I almost didn't make it in time. But you did, and that's all that matters, Izuku decided. Though, he did want to talk to Shigaraki a little more. Maybe he could have even gained another ally. And finally, we are done, Izuku announced in relief and collapsed on the floor. Todoroki, Uraraka, Sato, Kirishima, Ida, and Bakugo sat down on the floor as well. They, aside from Todoroki and Bakugo, decided to help out with renovating Inko's shop, viewing it as a good deed and a way to train for the upcoming sports festival. Izuku always found it funny as most of the people helping him didn't know that they were actually helping make a villain base. Still, he definitely appreciated it. Thank you, everyone, for your help. No problem, Midoriya. We're glad to help after all you've done for us, Sato said. There's no way I wasn't going to help. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 cheered. And now, your mom's shop can be open for business? We brought some drinks and snacks for everyone. 𝗵𝗃 announced as she came into the main area. All Might was trailing just behind her, carrying the snacks while 𝗵𝗃 carried the drinks. Awesome. Thank you, Mrs. Midoriya. Kirishima shouted as he quickly grabbed himself a soda and a bag of chips. Oh, it's actually Ms. Midoriya. I'm afraid I'm single at the moment, 𝗵𝗃 corrected. Well, thank you, Ms. Midoriya. Kirishima corrected himself. Hey, Auntie, we finished with everything, but do you need help with any of the clothes? Bakugo asked as he took a water bottle and some fruit. Thank you for the offer, but Izuku and I have everything covered. We just need to put some of them on the mannequins and hang up the rest, 𝗵𝗃 replied. I should be able to open the shop in a few days. Well, you can rest assured that the Ida family will be proud customers of your shop, Ida proclaimed. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 giggled. I'll probably get some clothes from here too. At least, when I can afford it. Oh, don't worry. All of Izuku's friends will get a discount. 𝗵𝗃 decided. Izuku smiled. He wouldn't really consider anyone here besides Todoroki and Bakugo as his friends. So far, they were just classmates to him. Still, he would go ahead and say that they were his friends. After all, he was still throwing on a little bit of an act for everyone. You all are amazing for helping out with 𝗵𝗃's shop. I will gladly pay for an outfit for you all if 𝗵𝗃 approves. All Might yelled. He did have quite a lot of cash, and he would be glad to help out with 𝗵𝗃's shop. Really? You don't have to do that, All Might. Kirishima protested. Nonsense. It will be my pleasure. Well, thank you, All Might. Sato spoke up. Awesome. Thank you. 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 cheered. She was honestly really excited to get an outfit from 𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗃 giggled. Well, I could give you all a sneak peek of the outfits we have and see if any of them catch your attention. Izuku happily watched from the sidelines as 𝗵𝗃 interacted with his classmates, showing them outfits, and even suggesting some to All Might. He was glad his mother was already getting the business, and she was clearly excited about all of this. Todoroki settled next to him. So, tomorrow is Sunday. Do you want to invite our recruits over? Watanabe. Yeah. We should give her a tour of everything. We actually have another one too. Tsutiki Shinzo. Apparently, you helped her with something and she wants to replay you. Todoroki glanced at Izuku. Izuku hummed in thought. Shinzo, what did she look like? Long dark purple hair with wisps of hair on the side of the face along with bangs that almost cover her eyes. She had her hair in pigtails if I remember. Her eyes were purple too, and she was really skinny. She seemed pretty awkward too. Izuku racked his brain. Oh yeah. Some 𝗓𝗪𝗀 stuck her backpack on the top of the ceiling with their quirk, so I got it down for her. What did she tell you exactly? Well, she said she wanted to return the favor however she could, so I asked her opinions on Hero Society. She said that it was corrupt, and wanted to change it. So, I offered her a chance to join us and she said yes, Todoroki explained. Alright. I guess we'll see the two of them tomorrow then. Izuku smiled at Todoroki. Their plans were going well so far. Oi, what are you two whispering about over there? Get your over here. Bakugo suddenly yelled, startling Izuku and Todoroki. Oh, sorry Kaken. Izuku rushed over to where the rest were, Todoroki following behind him. The next day, Watanabe and Shinzo found themselves at 𝗵𝗃's store. Izuku was there to greet them as soon as they stepped in. Hello you two. Thanks for coming on such short notice. We just got the base completed, though, and wanted to show the new recruits. Izuku greeted. No problem. I'm just glad that you're actually serious enough about this to have a base. Especially if it has a place where I can work, Watanabe replied, grinning. I'm just glad I can help you after you helped me. Shinzo muttered. Either way, I'm glad you two are here. Now, let's go check out the base, Izuku said as he led the two down to the basement, then through the secret door and down to their base. The stairs lead to a common room that had a couch, a TV, a bar, a small kitchen, and some beanbags. It was set up like this in case someone found their way down there, They could just say it was an employee break area. Whoa, this is nice. Watanabe exclaimed. Shoto and I figured it would be nice to have an area where we can chill out in between missions and such. Plus, it's important to have a good bond between our team, and movie nights can help that, Izuku explained. Now, let me show you the sleeping area. The small group moved down the hallway and took a right. Soon, they were surrounded by simple bedrooms. This is in case anyone needs or wants to spend the night. There is going to be a wide variety of people on our team, after all, so it only makes sense that there's an opportunity for some people to sleep here, or even live here in some cases. You know, I might just crash here a lot, since UA is closer to here than my apartment. Plus, I'm probably going to stay up a lot working on some inventions, Watanabe pointed out. Go for it. Anyway, let's show you the development area, where you'll be working at Watanabe. Izuku led them back down the hallway, but took a right. In only a few steps they arrived in front of a large room. This is the development area, where people can work on inventions and stuff. There are only a few counters and a huge toolbox in there for now, but feel free to add things that you need. Watanabe opened the door and gasped. This is bigger than the studio at UA. And I have this all for myself for now. Izuku chuckled. Just try and leave room for new people who may join. I will. Watanabe looked like she just wanted to dive straight into work, but she restrained herself. So, up the hall is my office, which you guys can visit anytime. It's just where I'll be coming up with plans and such. We only have 2 more places to see and I'll give you free range, Izuku explained. They went back down the hall, then made a right. There was a door to their right, then further down, a door on the left. So this is the meeting room, for when we need to talk about something big or similar things. Down the hall, Izuku trailed off as he opened the final door. It led to a huge room that could be identified as a gym. Inko and Todoroki were in the gym, looking like they were sparring with each other. Not with quirks, just hand to hand. Hey guys. Watanabe and Shinzo are here. Izuku yelled, causing Inko and Todoroki to stop and look at the newcomers. Inko smiled and relaxed. It's nice to meet you too. I'm Inko Midoriya, Izuku's mom. Watanabe grinned as Todoroki and Inko approached them. I'm Yuna Watanabe. Nice to meet ya. My quirk is metallokinesis. I can control metal. Oh, my quirk allows me to attract small objects, Inko added. That reminds me, what's your quirk, Shinzo? Izuku asked, looking at the small girl. Oh, my quirk is Healing Flame. It lets me heal wounds, but the bigger the wound the more stamina it requires from me. That's awesome. I'm glad to know that we have a healer on our side. Izuku grinned. I'm happy that we have both of you on our team. Well, if we're good, then I'm going to go check out the development lab. Thanks for the tour. Watanabe said. Izuku chuckled. Alright, have fun. Watanabe sprinted away. She seemed to be excited when it came to tech, and Izuku appreciated that. It was definitely good for his plans, and it was nice to find someone else who got excited about something as much as he did with certain heroes. He only hoped that she knew when to take breaks and how to take care of herself. Oh, is it alright if I use the kitchen? Shinzo asked in her quiet voice. Izuku nodded. Of course, go ahead. Shinzo smiled before walking off toward the kitchen. Izuku looked back at his mother and best friend once the girl was out of sight. So, what do you think? Those two are perfect. A healer and a mechanic. That's amazing. Inko cheered. I can't wait to learn more about them. They will be great for our team. We should set up an infirmary, now that I think about it, Todoroki mentioned. Yeah. Maybe with Watanabe's help, we can make a new room quicker. Izuku looked around and thought. Hey, we should probably strategize for the sports festival. We need to decide how we're going to do things.